Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Hey MJ friends, a lot of action out there today with dumps and bounces. I'm going to go over Hexo first individually. I'm going to go pretty in-depth because this applies as a market lesson in psychology. And again, it's one of those patterns where we've seen it play out dozens and dozens of times. And once we can recognize that, we can take advantage of the games that are being played. So if you've been watching the MJ videos that I've been putting out the last few days, I've been looking at Hexo and looking to get ready to scale into an oversold bounce position. But the reason I've held off is the hourly RSI has not been beat up enough. The daily RSI was great, the 4-hour RSI great in terms of being oversold and what I like to see, but it was the hourly RSI that just wasn't there yet because of these little weak bounces that kept that hourly RSI from getting anywhere aside from just below 30. And even during regular trading hours, only really once did it dip below 30 just in the last 3 days. So that kept me patient, but what did we see this morning? We saw a flush down, and that absolutely had me interested and looking to enter Hexo. So this morning on our whiteboard, I entered, it was pretty much our top watch looking at Hexo. So I made an entry at 388, and for those members who are not listening to me live for that trade, just to give some proof, because I know people on YouTube can say things and it might be hard to believe, but my game plan was enter at 388, and then I was going to enter again at 370, which is unfortunate that I missed my second fill by 3 pennies from the bottom. And then I was going to enter a third at 355. And the timeline that I'm looking at is for a daily oversold bounce to take place. So I only ended up getting 1 out of 3 fills. And unfortunately, this was an opportunity that could have been a week maker. Instead, it was a multiple day maker. I'm fine with that. But it was the kind of scenario where I was being patient as I was scaling in directly to the face of weakness. And it was also the kind of scenario where seeing what everybody else was doing, CGC, Cron, ACB, APHA, all down 4 to 6%, that led me to believe, okay, if Hexo's going to get a bounce going, we're going to have to see these names in the sector get an oversold bounce going as well. So the way it played out, I made my first entry, and then I patiently waited, and I was going to make my second entry. And we then had someone share in the chat room about the article that was being released. And thanks for that, Yoral, pointing out that circulating on Twitter, Hexo is the next Canada Trust, blah, 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 running afoul of regulations. That's coming after I said we're looking for a volume climax. We need the 5-minute trend change. We had the $5 flush and looking for bounce follow through. So when that happened, at that point when that article was posted, I had 1 position. I was looking for 2 more potentially. I didn't even click that article and read it. And the reason I didn't, and you can see I said here, max that fear. Because that is the game that is being played, and that is how emotional cycles are being taken advantage of. And that's how those who know this game and have been playing it for many years take advantage of those that don't know this game and are subject to reacting to their emotions. And that's the kind of scenario where, in my opinion, large short positions were being entered the last week. Obviously, that's not rocket science. We can see the significant weakness. So here's the shorts entering, and then the shorts have that article stashed away. And they say, all right, when we're looking to cover and exit our position, we're going to post this article. And the suckers that are buying the bottom are going to be buying our shorts that we're filling. So they are looking, or I should say, let's restate that. The suckers that are going short at the bottom are going to be filling the rebuys of the shorts that are covering. So if let's just use a hypothetical example. I'm getting excited. 100,000 shares. Let's say I'm short 100,000 shares and my average is at 460. And we pull back, and today we drop down under 373. So we're at the price of about 380, and I say, all right, we're ready to cover. Let's lock in this profit. Let's put out this article. Article gets put out. Anybody that doesn't know what they're doing is going to go bearish based on that article and say, CTST dropped huge. Maybe Hexo is going to drop huge. Well, it already has. You're a little late to the game. But as anybody that's going bearish or shorting shares on that article being released, the shorts are rebuying that 100,000 shares. So I'm rebuying 20,000 shares at the ask, and then someone else is a noob and they're, going short and then I'm rebuying into that short. So it's essentially allowing me to cover my short without running the price up on the oversold bounce. I then go long as well. I cover 100,000 short, I go long 100,000 shares. Next thing you know, locking it in both directions. Volume climax, bottom is set. And now the question is, how much bounce follow through can we get? So from there, I ended up taking profit at 422 because I had a multiple day maker and the move was going very, very fast. The 15-minute time frame was extremely extended, and it still is. But at that point, I was looking at right about here, and I said, okay, we're extremely extended. I only got 1 out of 3 fills, which is a very small position for me. It was about 10% of a position that I'd be looking to day trade CGC with. And I said, okay, 2-day maker, I'm going to lock it in, and I'll look to reload any consolidation. What I then observed was watching the bid and the ask. And on the US side, at 426, it was notable to me that every single time we broke 426 on this consolidation, after the first move, we double bottomed at 418. And then after that double bottom at 418, every time 426 broke, I watched this happen about 3 times, where the bid was at 426, it got sold into, the ask was then 426, and the bid was 425, and the ask sat at 426 for seconds, and then it was completely rebought again, and now the bid was 426. And I watched that same thing happen, which is essentially just a reloading of a bid and reloading of shares while trying to hide the fact, someone's not going to throw up a $100,000 or 100,000 share order at 426 because that's showing your hand. If I'm playing poker, that's me saying, here, this is what I'm doing. And that's someone looking to stop any downward action and keep the pressure on the bears, not allowing bears who are entered, not allowing them any wiggle room to try and exit, and forcing them to buy at the ask to exit any short positions, and of course stoking more FOMO for maybe any late bulls that are making some late entries and buying as well. So that told me, as long as I kept seeing that, that told me they're going to try and keep this short squeeze going into the end of the day. So after exiting at 422, I rebought. I think it ended up being at 427, 428. So I sold and rebought higher. And that's obviously not something you ideally want to be doing, but there's situations like this one where it's completely warranted, and I would consider that 6-cent hit that I took to my cost basis. My average was 388. Now my break-even price is 394, but I consider that just insurance. And that insurance was locking in my profit, making note of the details, making note of the environment and what was going on, and then re-entering when essentially I felt like the coast was clear for any kind of significant consolidation, which then started to show me that's not going to take place today as we're running out of time and bulls are running it into the end of the day. So into tomorrow, we're very overextended. We don't have an hourly trend change. This move came straight off the bottom. This is the move I was looking for to happen on this oversold bounce, but I was looking for these kind of gains over 2 to 3 days of a bounce, not all in one day. So certainly, definitely a bonus in that regard. And you might be saying, how could you know it was going to bounce like this? I didn't know it was going to bounce like this. I used my edge as a trader and looked for the oversold bounce, but just positioning ourselves in low risk situations and exposing ourselves to the potential of a move like this is how we can make big wins. So what's my game plan from here? Because it's a smaller position, I'm probably going to set my stop loss at break even and hope that this is our monthly high or low. Now this is 1 day of a bounce. So the odds that this is our monthly high or low being set are not very high. That being said, if it is our monthly high or low, I'm going to look for a 50% bounce off this bottom for our monthly lower high to form and for our run into the fall. So if we were going to see a bounce and follow through even more than that, 50% would be conservative if this is our monthly high or low. So my risk is $0 unless we were to see bad news and a huge gap down open sometime in the next week or so. And my reward is potentially significant if it's the monthly high or low. We're not convinced it's the monthly high or low, which is why that reward potential is so high. So that's probably what I'm going to do with this move. And again, we need hourly continuation. We need a higher low and higher high. So hourly consolidation won't be a red flag. I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of a strong start first thing tomorrow morning, straight into hourly consolidation to form that higher low. Keeping in mind that anything on the daily chart under 515, which is still 20% from here, anything under 515 is a daily lower high, and we still have the daily exponential resistance, which has been a brick wall for over a month. That's going to be in play the next few days as well. So if you are looking for an entry in Hexo, in my opinion, we're waiting for hourly consolidation to be looking for that entry. But we're reminding ourselves in the back of our head, this bounce is doing nothing to change the daily trend at this point. Yes, it's notable volume and bull strength, but until we change the daily trend, it's the same thing I've been saying for months, until we change daily trends, the momentum does not clearly shift in any meaningful way on the longer term time frames. So let's now get into our normal analysis, and we'll skip Hexo as I just did it, and we'll take it from there. All right, back to regular old technical analysis. So CGC, yet again, we know what the bulls have to do to change momentum and change the daily trend for the first time in 3+ months, and they just don't do it. We broke all support, dropping to lower lows. The daily RSI is about to be oversold again. And we're in an area with a lack of support. We're looking at psychological levels, 33, 32, 31, 30. Nothing is nearby here. And we're moving back down that area that we exploded through when we saw the announcement with Constellation. We're now falling back through that range with no support established. So I'll be interested again in CGC for an oversold bounce if the daily RSI gets in the mid to low 20s, and if the 4-hour and hourly RSI line up oversold as well. We saw a bounce today, a nice few percent bounce, but it's just an hourly lower high. If the bulls are going to see any kind of bounce follow through, we have to hold the low of today and then break 33.84 tomorrow to change the hourly trend, and then be looking up at the high of today as the next resistance. If we cannot change this hourly trend bullish, the bounce is not going to get any follow through, and we will still be in full control of these bears who have been rejecting the price from the exponential resistance on the daily time frame for the last month. Cron with a big setback day as well, taking out support of 1447, 1391 and 1351 are left. We formed our weekly higher low and saw zero follow through, and now we're close to breaking that level. So again, no sign of the bulls shifting momentum, the sector not going along with it when Cron did get this little higher high last week, and we gave back all that and more very easily. Still weak in the major Canadian MJ names. APHA dropping down. Daily RSI is 23. 4-hour RSI cooled off a little bit on this bounce. It was down in the teens. Hourly RSI also got crushed. That's when I looked to play the oversold bounces. We went from 522 up to 545, a nice little 4% bounce. But again, we have to change the hourly trend for this bounce to get any follow through. And the bulls will have to hold 522 and break 545 to change that hourly trend. Otherwise, the next support level that we're looking down at, if we break 522 support, is going to be down at 5 psychological. Bears in full control, and when we do get follow through on any of these bounces and the hourly trends do change, we're just looking for daily lower highs. ACB, same boat. Yeah, there's a lower wick and some nice volume. Have we changed the hourly trend? No. We have to hold 601 and break 629 to change that hourly trend and look for any bounce follow through, knowing that pretty much anything under 746 is just a daily lower high. These are prolonged, longer-term downtrends on the daily time frame. And again, there's no fake outs here. We have not changed the daily trend on ACB or CGC or a lot of these names in 2 to 3 months for most of them. TLRY, more and more of this pullback, we're now looking for a weekly equilibrium, best case for the bulls. Before, we were looking for the potential of can the bulls change the weekly trend with a higher low and higher high. We've now been pulling back for 6 weeks, and the answer is probably not. We probably have to form an equilibrium. I do expect 34.25 will likely hold initially, and then we'll look for a bounce and a lower high compared to 51.03, and for this weekly range to tighten up into September. Is there any indication that our weekly higher low has formed? The answer is no. And again, the hourly trend has to change for any kind of meaningful bounce to take place. And right now, these bounces are just coming off of the low of the day. Same as Hexo, but it was a huge bounce on Hexo. VFF still standing out for the Canadian MJ Bulls. We are right here knocking on resistance of 1510 and 1533. And this is the Canadian ticker. For the US ticker, it's going to be resistance of 1149, 1167, 1178. Break those levels, the daily shift will be on. We'll have the first bull cross of the exponential moving averages in a month plus. And from there, it's going to look very convincing if we get that break that our monthly higher low has been established off of exponential support. We will still need a weekly trend change to be real sure of that. But we broke 981 without a ton of follow through. It actually was about 10% of follow through, but right into a bounce, and a solid bounce at that. Change the daily trend. The odds that our monthly high or low has been set will increase. And then if we can change the weekly trend into the fall, the odds that it have been set will be very high. T-God, oversold bounce trying to play out. Again, I would consider anything under 330 just a daily lower high. Have we changed the hourly trend? No, we have not. Need a clear hourly higher low and higher high to see any kind of bounce follow through, and in which point we will zoom out to the daily and just look for a daily lower high to form. Have to change these daily trends for bulls to prove anything to us. CTST looking like a lower high is now set, 240, and support is 210 and 187 as we head back down towards that recent low. I would expect the selling pressure to subside a bit this week, unless we get some kind of news about license being revoked or something along those lines, but I would expect declining volume and probably tightening ranges on CTST. Essentially, without news, I'm going to be looking for 187 to hold, at least initially. OGI, daily higher low trying to form compared to 540. Have to change the hourly trend just like everybody else. It's a great V-shaped recovery, but we need a higher low and higher high to believe that the bulls have any kind of significant follow-through. Change the hourly trend, we zoom out to the daily, and we look for a lower high compared to 695. But we have to change the hourly trend as step number one. VGW is a potential daily bear flag. If we see a break of the low of today, tomorrow of 369, odds of that daily bear flag will increase a good bit. As far as resistance goes, 397 is resistance. I haven't liked this chart. Ever since the uplisting, it's been choppy. We have not seen 2 green days in a row in a while. And it's all about 337 as a must-hold support level on the weekly time frame. NEPT trying to form that daily higher low. Have we changed the hourly trend? No, we have not. Topped out at 615, trying to form a higher low at 555. Essentially, we have an equilibrium on the hourly. High of 622, low of 555, lower high of 615, higher low of 571, and we're going to look for a lower high compared to 615 tomorrow to see if this hourly range can tighten up. Taking off extended hours, it looks a bit more clear. Looking for a lower high compared to 615. Have to change this hourly trend bullish to be convinced that our daily higher low has been established. And that would be healthy if this is our daily higher low. We're just not too sure of it yet. IIPR still looking like a daily bear flag. Broke the low of Thursday, or Friday I should say. And now we're looking at 105.50, 104.62, and then the bottom 98.50. Bulls have to hold 98.50 and turn around and get into the 1-teens to try and see any kind of bounce follow through. Cureleaf, looking great. That hourly equilibrium broke bull at 990. We got some slow follow through Friday, more significant follow through today. 1070 was a triple top. It ended up in an hourly bull flag, confirming at the end of the day, breaking that resistance, and now we're just looking at 1103. If 1103 breaks, we have a very clear daily trend change. If 1103 does not break and we lose the hourly uptrend by breaking 1045, then we'll look for a daily tightening range and equilibrium to form. So 1103 to 1045 is the most important range. CWeb, bullish news. I forget what it is off the top of my head. Forget which store it was. Either way, bullish news, go look it up. Big gap up open. That's our weekly higher low being set. In some instances, we don't need daily trend changes to look for higher lows to be set. And this is one of those instances, just the fact that we've gone 25% off that low, our weekly higher low is now set. So low, high, higher low. Question for the next month is, can the bulls break 24.49, or do we reject and form a weekly equilibrium into September? We still need a daily trend change, so when we do top out and lose this momentum, if we can change the daily trend, odds of a weekly trend change will increase a good bit. If we don't change that trend on the daily, we're going to look to fade back down and tighten up. TRUL, I'm interested in TRUL. I want to see a top out, an inability to break 1462. I want to see a pullback, in which instance I'll begin scaling in, looking for the daily higher low, and giving myself a position to hope for the inverse head and shoulders pattern to play out. That would be a daily trend change if it did play out, and my stop level would be clearly defined at 1177. I would like to start scaling in the low 13s into the mid-12s with multiple positions, but we have to have an indication that we've topped out, which we don't have yet. But that's something I'm keeping an eye on. The size of this bounce makes me interested and gives me confidence after 20% bounce that we can look to form a daily high or low. So I am interested in TRUL for the next few days this week. GTII, solid bounce. Now we have to change the daily trend. Have to pull back, hold 1139. And that's if we lose the hourly uptrend. If we lose the hourly uptrend by breaking 1296, our top of the bounce will be set, and we'll look for the higher low to form. You could have the same psychology, or I should say the same game plan that I have on TRUL with GTII. With the size of the bounce, we will be looking for a daily higher low to form. But again, burden of proof remains on the bulls to have to change that daily trend with a higher low and higher high. IAN, still just lower highs on the daily. Nice little bounce, but nothing changing longer term. 18% bounce. We can easily drop to lower lows from here. What the bulls want to see is a good old inverse head and shoulders. Inability to break 395. We topped out at 376. And the bulls would have to pull back, hold the low of 318, and then break the daily lower high patterns, get over the daily exponential resistance. Again, we just continually reject from these daily exponential resistances. No follow through. That's what the bulls have to see, a daily trend change. MedMen, solid little bounce. It only lasted one day, and we're heading right back down towards the all-time lows. If 260 breaks, odds of testing all-time lows will go very high. Bulls have to hold 260 and break 294 to change the daily trend and give any hope that the all-time low can hold. So oversold bounces, can we change hourly trends and get follow through? If we do, we zoom out to the daily and know that daily lower highs are still very likely, even with Hexo. Huge bounce, but I'm going to protect my trade and hope that we can get some shift in momentum, knowing that I have zero risk, and knowing that if we do get that shift and monthly higher lows do form, there will be some solid opportunity as far as profits. That's all I got. Hope you're well. Here at the end of the video, we got ducks and stuff. See you tomorrow. So to wrap it up here today, some more duck observations. Yesterday, a lot of changes. First change is noticing the last feathers to mature on the baby ducks are on their wings, and they're their stripes. They're white. Mom has a white and purple and white stripe on her wings, and these ducks now have their white stripes. The color's not really coming in just yet. So I noticed that for the first time yesterday, and then I saw behavior that I haven't seen before. The first was they are all diving underwater. They've been dipping their heads under and sticking their butts up to reach for stuff, but these are full-on dives and swimming underwater, and they're also skimming. They're learning to fly. Mom's teaching them how to fly for the first time yesterday, and I bet with how well they were doing, they'll probably be flying by the weekend, and they might leave. They might go on their way and find mates and leave the pond. I'm sure someone will be back next spring, but it's in the video here that I attached, you see them doing their skimming on the pond where they're just getting a little bit of air, they're spreading their wings, and you can see Mom encouraging them. Mom goes from one pond to the other, and she gets to the other pond and she starts yelling back at them for them to try and fly to her, and they're not ready for that step just yet, but I bet they'll be doing that this evening or tomorrow, going from one little pond to the next. I'll keep you posted on that. And tomorrow we'll check in on everything I've been doing this weekend, planting a whole bunch of perennial fruit trees.